Hey guys, Michael Marshawn, your Ziegler certified Choose to Win coach and your San Antonio realtor and Texas broker here. I wanted to jump on today and just share a little bit more of my perspective and my feelings around failure. So, failure is not a dirty word, that's a title. If you're like me, maybe you're not, but maybe you are. So, I just wanted to share my perspective on this. For me, I've always taken failure very personally, and I've for a long time viewed it as more of the end. What it should be is just a learning experience, and I'll get into that more in a second here. But basically, my goal in this video is to help you guys redefine how you view failure, what you think about failure, how you're talking to yourself about failure, all those kinds of things, because failure is ultimately it's an inevitability if you're doing anything that's worth doing. And it shouldn't be something that discourages you. It should be something that ultimately we learn from and we build upon. So the five things I want to do in this video is I want to define failure, the official definition. If you go in the dictionary, what is it? Of course, if we're defining the bad of it, we got to define the good. So opposite of failure is success. Let's go ahead and we'll define that as well. Then what is our gauge? How are we measuring when we fail or when we succeed? And then finally, the two most important things that I'm going to cover are our self-talk. What are we telling ourselves around failure or success? And how can we change our mindset so we view failure differently? So, wanted to jump in here. Starting off, failure is a lack of success. This is straight from the dictionary, Merriam-Webster dictionary. Lack of success is the definition of failure. And then, of course, success is a favorable or desired outcome. And the first thing I want to point out here, guys, is that these are very subjective definitions. Now, they're not concrete in any way. And what may be a lack of success for somebody else could be a complete success for you. So that takes us into our next slide. The wheel of life. Now, if you guys watched my last video, then you're familiar with the wheel of life. And by the definition that we just read, a lack of success. Now, you could be considered a failure in any one of these areas. As you know, if you're familiar with Ziegler and the wheel of life, there's seven spokes. And these seven spokes are the seven spokes that create all the different aspects of our life. So we got physical, family, mental, financial, spiritual, career, and personal. And if you look closely here, and if you watch my video, you probably have a pretty good idea because you did the assessment of exactly where on any one of these you land. So a one is going to be basically the bottom of the barrel. So you're rock bottom, you're not doing very good. There's a ton of area for you to improve. Obviously, five's kind of in the middle. So I'm doing okay. I could go down, but I could also go up. So there's room for improvement there still. 10 is like I'm nailing life in that area and there's nothing that I really need to change. I'm just rock solid. So the odds are that if you go through and you rate yourself, you're going to come out less than 10 on at least one of these seven spokes. And the natural inclination for a lot of people would be to consider themselves a failure in that area. So for me, right now, the area that I'm spending the most time focusing on is physical. So I have some very specific physical goals that I want to meet in the next 3 years. And I have several shorter terms, but one of my big goals is by the time I'm 40, I want to run a full Ironman. If you're familiar with triathlons, that's kind of the epitome of the triathlete is being able to complete an Ironman. It's a grueling race. I've gotten as far as a half Ironman, and then I've suffered some setbacks in the physical department and had to go through some rehab and some lifestyle changes. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm kind of rebuilding the physical aspect. So some people would look at that as a failure. I don't. I just look at it as a temporary setback. And when I'm able to, I'm going to pick that back up. Another one that I am working heavily on, and that's kind of always a focus that I never truly want to stop, is the mental spoke. So for me, the mental spoke is the most important because mental is going to be anything that goes into your mind. So what are you feeding your mind? And for me, as a choose to win coach and as a realtor, like that is a big part of my job is continuing to grow as a person. Because if I'm being outgrown by the people I'm coaching, then I'm quickly going to be out of a job. And that's just something that's a passion for me. I love to learn and I love to be able to bring new things to my clients when I'm coaching them. So again, don't look at anything here as a failure or a success. Look at it as a starting point. Don't look at it as a failure. So if you're at a one, that's not a failure. That's just your starting point. You're starting maybe lower than some people you know. Your story is not their story. So don't let their here and now become an influence on your here and now. What they've been through and what you've been through are not the same things. And that's ultimately what makes you uniquely qualified to go out and do what only you can do. So moving on, success. How do we measure success? It's got to be specific or it's not really measurable. So for me, measuring success and or failure is just measuring results. And to clearly measure and accurately measure results, you have to have three things. You have to have a clearly defined goal. So what is it that you're working towards or what is it that you're trying to achieve? Essentially, what are we going to be measuring and how are we going to know if we reached it or not reached it? So clearly defined goal, specific timeline for achieving it. What is the length of time from start to finish that we're giving ourselves to complete this particular goal, whatever it may be? And then a specific metric that you're measuring it. So without knowing what you're measuring as you're going along, you're going to have no idea how far or how straight on course you are if you don't have anything to measure it by. So an easy example is going back to the physical spoke of the wheel. If you're trying to get in shape and lose some weight, losing weight is a very specific, tangible goal. So say you wanted to lose 20 pounds and you're going to give yourself 2 months. So that's 10 pounds every month. You have a 2 month window to do it. So now you have a specific goal, 20 pounds. You have a specific timeline. I have 60 days or 2 months to do it. And your specific metric that you're going to be measuring it by is going to be your pounds. So every time you step on the scale, that's going to tell you exactly where you're at in correlation to your goal. Are you moving closer to your goal? Are you staying the same? Or are you falling further behind? By weighing yourself, you'll be able to tell, okay, I need to make these adjustments and these changes, or I'm not going to reach my specific goal on the specific time that I set for myself. So without those three things, you're ultimately just kind of setting yourself up for failure because you're not going to have an accurate and true picture of what you're doing and how you're doing. And you're essentially just going to be kind of spinning your wheels. So that being said, the end goal may change. Like you may get to halfway in and realize that you set a goal that was way unachievable for yourself. That's okay. That's what the specific metric of measuring it is for. So we know how and when to adjust with the progress along the way. Now, I love this quote. You never fail until you stop trying, Albert Einstein. Now, this is a guy who knows something about failure and success. Obviously, none of us, or at least I'll speak for myself, I don't put myself in the same category as Albert Einstein, but I love the mindset and kind of the thinking that goes into that. You never fail until you stop trying. So, with that framing, failure is ultimately up to you. It's completely a choice that you get to make. Nobody else can determine your failure, and therefore nobody else can determine your success. It's completely up to you. Unless you stop trying, then you will never be a failure in your life. Elon Musk, here's another great quote. Failure is an option here. If things are not failing, you are not innovating enough. Now, guys, this is quite literally somebody that is sending people to the moon. You know, we're dealing with rocket science in this particular case. Now, most of the time, at least in my personal experience, generally what we're dealing with is not going to be on the level of rocket science. It may feel like rocket science and it may feel unachievable and unattainable for you particularly, but that's where having a coach and that's where having some accountability and somebody to walk beside you through that comes in. Winston Churchill, success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. So as you can see, there's kind of a pattern developing here that success is more of a mindset as much as failure is. Now, failure is only final when you stop trying. And success is something that you can ultimately achieve and is a tangible goal, but it's also something that should be growing as we do. So it's not like you want to set one goal for yourself, accomplish it, and then be done. The mindset that comes behind failure and success is that you're constantly growing and you're constantly striving for more. So it's not about an ultimate end goal. It's more about becoming a person and having a mindset and a mentality that is such that when you fail, you get back up and keep going again, because failure is just another way not to do something, and it's not an end result. So self-talk. If you're like me, I say some things to myself that I would probably punch somebody in the face if they said to me. You know, I can be very hard and very rough on myself, and that is something that I've had to work on. And there is actually a physiological thing that happens in our brains. Now, we actually process positive and negative information in different hemispheres of our brain. So, two different parts of our brain process positive versus negative information. And the way we're wired is that we give more weight to the negative than we do to the positive. So we'll spend more time dwelling on it. It's ultimately something that's going to have a bigger impact on us and that we're going to have to be more cognizant of, because our natural inclination is to go towards a negative. So, for example, there's a study out there where they had a group of participants and gave everybody a chance to win money. So they took the participants and they, each one of them, one by one, they won $50. And then subsequently, they ended up losing that same $50 that they had just won. And when they did the survey at the end of it, there was much more negative emotion attached to losing the money than there was joy or positive emotion attached to winning the money. Even though they went in and came out with the exact same amount of money, they didn't actually lose anything, but just that perception of having lost the money that they had previously won messed with them and the emotional impact it had on them. So that is something that you have to be cognizant of, because by that standard right there, failure is going to have a more dominant impact on us than success ever will. Think about reviews. Like if you have if I get a bad review on this video, I'm going to care a lot more instinctively about the bad review. So I could have 10 great reviews, everybody loved it, and then one bad review. I'm going to obsess and I'm going to naturally want to focus on that one bad review just because that's how my brain works. So I have to be conscious of that, and I have to put some barriers and some roadblocks in there to help me not go down that rabbit trail. And part of that is really our mindset. So what you feed your mind determines your appetite, Tom Ziegler. And in Choose to Win coaching, that is a big part of what we teach, is that what you feed your mind is ultimately going to be what you have more of a desire for. So that goes back to the mental spoke I was talking about, and never really being, I never want to be at a 10 in the mental spoke, because I always want to be growing and I always want to be achieving and learning more. And especially in today's world where there's a wealth of information and distractions and everything else, it's extremely easy to get sucked into the wrong kind of information that's going to have a negative impact on us. And ultimately, if we suck in that negative information, we let it into our brains, then that's going to have a negative impact on our self-talk. It's going to have a negative impact on our basically every other area. It's a spiral. So if you have a negative mental input, that's going to end up affecting your physical, your emotional, your spiritual, your financial potentially. It can have an impact on every area. Maybe not like in the immediate short term, but if you continue to feed that, that's going to change how you view things and how you think about things. So, like, what are we listening to? Are you listening to just music? Is it news? Is it talk radio? Whatever it may be. Or are you listening to podcasts? Are you listening to audiobooks? Are you listening to something that's positive and uplifting? Same thing. What are you watching? Do you spend a lot of time watching kind of smut TV or reality TV or stuff that maybe isn't bad, but has no real uplifting qualities in it? And then probably most importantly, who are we hanging out with and surrounding ourselves with? Now, there is a saying that the 10 people you're closest to are the 10 people that you're going to be most alike. So you have to be cognizant and you have to be very careful who you're allowing into your space. Now, I get it with work and maybe family situations. You can't necessarily pick and can't choose who you hang out with, but you can, as much as possible, limit your interaction with those people. And ultimately it's up to you whether or not you surround yourself outside of work and in your free time who you hang out with. So surrounding yourself with people that are going to lift you up, surrounding yourself with people that are going to encourage you, surrounding yourself that are with people that are committed to growth. Those are the kinds of people that you want to surround yourself with, because when things get tough, they're going to be there for you. They're not going to naysay you. They're not going to knock you down. They're going to lift you up. They're going to encourage you, and they're going to help you get back on your feet and moving forward towards your goal. So, in conclusion, the fastest way to success is to replace bad habits with good ones. So, whether you're talking about the definition of success, whether you're talking about mindset, your self talk, whatever it is, just focus on small changes, because ultimately taking huge bites out of something and trying to take huge steps is probably going to lead to more failures and more discouragement and more upset than small habits changing over a period of time. So find small changes you can make, whether that's in the people you hang out with. Maybe it's something as simple as not listening to, for me, it was not listening to the news, because there was so much negative in the news and I was only hearing one side of it, that it was starting to create like a bitterness and a resentment in me. So I had to cut out the news. And now the only thing I'll listen to when I'm in the car is a podcast, an audiobook, something that's going to be uplifting and encouraging. And I've been doing that for about a month now, and I've noticed a huge difference in my positivity and just how I view and look at things. So whatever it is, pick one small habit that you're aware of, that you're conscious, okay, this is something I need to change, and focus on just changing that one small thing. Do that consistently for a week. Do that consistently for a week. And then if you're feeling good, you have momentum, then add another small change. Just little incremental changes. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but small changes over a period of time and continue to stack on each other will ultimately transform your entire life and can take you down a completely different road than you would have ever been able to go on if you try to make dramatic changes that aren't going to stick. So again, choose to win. Guys, you're all meant for something great. I truly believe that. If you don't know your why, or you're struggling with getting clarity on your why, I would love to talk to you. That's one of my favorite things to do, is help people find their why. Because ultimately the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is lean back on your why and refocus yourself on your why in these hard times. So if you hit a setback and you have a clear why, you understand where you're going and why you're going there, then the setback's going to be much more inconsequential because you have that big picture in mind. So shoot me a message, leave a comment, give me a call if you'd like. If you guys have any feedback, I'd love feedback on this. Go ahead and subscribe as well. I'm going to be having these videos coming out weekly now. So give it a like, give me a subscribe, and be sure and tell your friends. Anyway, get out there and conquer, guys. I'll talk to you later.